I always knew I wasn't the favorite, but I never expected to be called extra luggage out loud, in front of a crowd, by my own parents. It happened at my brother Liam's wedding, a grand, showy event at a private vineyard estate that I wasn't even sure I'd be invited to. My parents had gone all out for him, custom-tailored tux, open bar, a string quartet flown in from New York. For me, a late RSVP and a whispered request to please wear something that won't clash with the decor. On the day of the wedding, I arrived alone. No seat had been reserved for me at the front where the family sat. Instead, I was shown to a corner table near the kitchen entrance, where the clinking of dishes nearly drowned out the vows. When I gently asked why, my mother leaned in, wineglass in hand, and said, "Darling, you're not part of the main event. You're like extra luggage, necessary but never really needed." She laughed. My father laughed. Even Liam gave me a look that said, "Don't make this about you." And just like that, every polite smile I'd rehearsed in the mirror crumbled. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I watched as my sister-in-law toasted to family without glancing my way. Watched as my seat was given to a distant cousin's girlfriend who fit the photo vibe better. Watched as my parents beamed with pride every time someone praised Liam for his career, his charisma, his perfect upbringing. A phrase that conveniently erased me from existence. But the most humiliating moment wasn't even public. It came later when I tried to speak to my mother in private, hoping she'd see how much I was hurting. She cut me off and said, "Stop being dramatic. This day isn't about you. Try not to ruin it like you ruin everything." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, but deeply. It wasn't rage. It was something colder, sharper, a silence that stopped needing their approval. I walked away from that vineyard not just as a daughter dismissed, but as a woman awakening. What they didn't know was that for the past few years, while they were too busy spotlighting Liam, I had been building a life, quietly, deliberately. I had a company, a home, a reputation, and a resolve that had weathered more storms than they'd ever bothered to notice. They thought I was extra luggage. They had no idea I had become the driver. And that wedding, that moment they buried me in mockery, it would be the seed, the very one that would grow into the tree under whose shade they'd one day beg to rest. After the wedding humiliation, I went home with my heels in my hand, tears streaking down my face, and the word extra echoing louder than the music from the reception. They didn't just seat me at the back table. They made sure the world knew I was an afterthought. Disposable. Unnecessary. I stared at my reflection that night, still in my makeup and gown, and whispered, "Never again." It wasn't just about a seat at a wedding anymore. It was about every seat they'd denied me at every table my whole life. I packed my things and moved out of town without a goodbye. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I cut off every contact that reminded me of how small they made me feel. It wasn't easy. There were nights I slept on a friend's couch. Days I skipped meals just to pay rent. But what they didn't know, what they never bothered to know, was that being underestimated was the one weapon they handed me, and I planned to sharpen it until it bled power. For 3 years, I lived in the shadows. While they posed for family photos at beach resorts and tagged my sister in blessed Instagram posts, I was studying online courses in business, learning code, developing projects, pitching startup ideas. I was building a digital empire from scratch. I didn't have time for bitterness. I had blueprints. I didn't need apologies. I needed capital. Every sleepless night was fuel. Every ignored message from my mother or smirk from my sister became a stepping stone. I didn't dream of revenge at first. I dreamed of freedom. But when I earned it, oh, the taste of it demanded more. It was during the launch of my third app that things shifted. My company was suddenly hot in the venture capital world. A journalist wrote a glowing piece on the unshakable resilience of women who rise from family trauma. And just like that, my silence became a spotlight. I started receiving interview requests, podcast invites, and then a call from my hometown's event coordinator. They were looking for a new sponsor for the annual gala, ironically, hosted at the same venue where my brother's wedding had taken place. I smiled. Fate doesn't knock. It throws bricks through windows. I bought the venue, not just rented it, bought it outright. And not only that, I bought their dream house next door too. The white-paneled, ivy-draped home they used to point out every time we passed by as kids, saying, "That's what real success looks like." When the paperwork was finalized, I didn't call them. I hosted a gratitude garden party on the lawn, invited the mayor, a few influencers, my business team, and some faces from the past who once whispered pity behind my back. I made sure the theme was familiar, gold and lavender, the same colors from my brother's wedding. The menu? Taken from my parents' anniversary party 2 years ago. I recreated it all down to the smallest detail, except this time, I was at the head table. This time, the name cards didn't leave me out. I sat surrounded by people who respected me, not because they had to, but because I had built something they couldn't deny. I knew the moment would come. My parents showed up uninvited, shocked to see their former extra luggage signing autographs on the lawn they once dreamed of owning. I didn't ask security to turn them away. I handed them champagne. Cold, sparkling, bitter. I toasted them in front of everyone. To the ones who taught me what not to become. Without you, I wouldn't be here. The crowd clapped. They laughed nervously. My parents stood frozen, red-faced, their smiles trembling under the weight of their own shame. My sister tried to joke, "Well, I guess we raised a boss." I leaned in, handed her a note card that read, "You don't get to laugh this time." Then I turned around. I didn't need to scream or cry. I had already won. But I wanted them to know exactly what they lost. I had built the life they never thought I could, and I did it in silence. Now, my success was screaming louder than their rejection ever could. Weeks after the party, the videos went viral. Clips of my toast flooded TikTok with captions like, "Poetic justice in heels," and "The ultimate glow-up revenge." People online called me an inspiration, but what they didn't see was the part after the applause, the quiet drive home, the silence in my living room, the empty inbox from my family. I had won the war, yes, but wars don't end with confetti. They end with silence. And yet, that silence, it didn't hurt anymore. But then, one evening, I got a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it to find my mother standing on my porch, hair disheveled, eyes puffy. She looked nothing like the woman who once called me dramatic for crying. In her hands was a photo album, one I hadn't seen in years. It was filled with pictures of me as a baby, drawings I made in 2nd grade, report cards, birthday cards I thought they had thrown out. She held it out like it was a peace offering, but I didn't reach for it. "I didn't come to apologize," she said. "I came to understand why you never came back." I wanted to yell, to throw every memory in her face, but instead, I let her talk. For once, she wasn't defending herself. She was confessing. She told me they had treated me like background noise because I never fought for the spotlight like my sister. They mistook my silence for weakness, and when I disappeared, it was easier to blame me than to ask why. I didn't cry. I didn't forgive her. But I didn't slam the door either. Instead, I walked her to the front gate and said something I never thought I would. "You taught me how to survive, not by nurturing me, but by abandoning me. And for that, I'm stronger. But you don't get to rewrite history just because you finally read the ending." She left without another word, and I watched her go, not with bitterness, but with clarity. A month later, I received a letter from my father. No return address. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a short note. "I wish I'd given you more than money when it mattered." I didn't cash it. Instead, I donated it to a shelter for girls estranged from their families. I wrote a letter to be delivered with it. "To the girl who feels like extra luggage, you're not. You're the whole journey." That was my real ending, not the party, not the revenge, but the moment I used my pain to build a path for someone else. The moment I realized I didn't just want to prove them wrong. I wanted to make it right for others like me. I didn't need their love anymore. I had something better. Self-worth, peace, and power they couldn't take back, even if they begged at my gates. And they did. Months later, when they lost their home due to bad debts and called me in desperation, I simply said, "This house has no room for people who treated me like I didn't belong in theirs." Click. That was the sound of closure, and the loudest silence they'd ever hear.